The Coast Guard says the sub suffered a catastrophic implosion, killing all 5 on board, including OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush, British private plane owner and billionaire Hamish Harding, former French Navy diver Paul-Henri Nargeolet, British businessman Shahzada Dawood, and his son, 19-year-old Suleiman. Dawood's wife, Christine, was on board the support vessel at the time, revealing that she originally had a seat on the OceanGate alongside her husband, but gave it to her son. In her first interview, Christine Dawood telling the BBC she was holding out hope for days.
I mean, I think I lost hope when we passed the 96 hours mark. That's when I lost hope. And that's when I even then sent a message to my family on shore. I said, I'm preparing for the worst.
Meanwhile, a sub-industry expert telling British newspaper The Times that OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush was on a, quote, predatory hunt for wealthy clients to endorse his deep-sea trips to the Titanic wreckage. Patrick Leahy, whose company Triton Submarines has been involved in the creation and testing of human-rated submersibles, telling the paper that Rush could be incredibly persuasive and somehow even convinced his friend Nargeolet, who knew and understood the risks, to go on the mission. Leahy says he warned Nargeolet before he joined the doomed dive. Quote, I told him in very candid terms why he shouldn't be out there. He understood. I believed that PH thought in some way that by being out there he could help these guys avoid a tragedy, but instead he ended up in the middle of one. So could criminal charges be real? And if so, who could face the charges? After all, the CEO of the company has died. Joining me now is Twain Braden, an attorney who specializes in maritime law, has been following the case closely. Thanks very much for taking the time. Appreciate it. Before I ask you whether criminal charges are likely, who would they be investigating? Are they investigating the company? I mean, when you think about the fact that the CEO has died here.
Yeah, I think, thank you for having me, first of all. I mean, I think that the way the statute reads is they could charge the captain or pilot of the submarine, but of course, as you said, he's now been lost. So the statute also provides for criminal fines or imprisonment against owners or officers of a company. So it's pretty wide open. And the statute, although you got to be clear that there is no suggestion that they are pursuing these charges very early, but there is that potential with that Seaman's manslaughter statute.
And yeah, talk to us about it. You keep talking about the statute, the Seaman's manslaughter statute. What is that?
Well, that's one example of the way the DOJ, through its U.S. attorneys, could bring charges if the Coast Guard sought it or recommended it. So it's a very seldom used statute that has been used in the past. Most recently, I think, in the motor vessel Concepcion fire, where over 30 people were killed in a fire out on the West Coast. But it is very seldom used. And so I think that obviously the Coast Guard is going to look at this first through a sense of compassion and try to, they're often saying things like, we'll go where the evidence leads. And I think that's their role right now, is to really look at the evidence and find out what happened long before any consideration for potential criminal charges. And
there is also this issue of sort of jurisdiction. I mean, let me read you this. OceanGate is based in Everett, Washington, right? The Titan submersible was registered in the Bahamas. Titan was deployed by a Canadian ship, and the implosion happened in international waters in the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, it does create all sorts of questions about, who's going to be investigating what.
Yeah, and I think that one of the challenges for our countries is that there's such a patchwork of regulation around the world, and so you have these events that occur on the high seas, whether it's ship accidents, or in this case, the loss of a submersible with 4 different potentially nations that have an interest in it. So we don't have these sort of cohesive treaties in which everything that happens on the high seas is subject to this one body of law. So you're right. There are a number of jurisdictions, including some that you didn't name just now, that could take an interest one way or the other in this.
Twain Braden, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.